Here we are. Welcome to my show, My Planets in What?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and this is Jess, and we met actually quite a long time ago through my sister's friends. And the reason we connected off the back, you know, our friends have a lot of like big social events, and we were kind of in the corner. And my sister was like, "Oh, you have to talk to Jess because you're both Leos." And so we're just like the Leos in the corner, just like, you know, being loud and, you know, doing gossiping and doing our Leo things. And so at a lot of parties, like we're always kind of checking in, like what's going on with this, what's going on with that. And I like to have different, you know, kind of levels of astrological expertise on the show. Sometimes I get these like really serious professional astrologers. Sometimes I have just like people who are like enthusiasts and find it fun and like to think about it. And that's because I try to make it approachable for a lot of different.
Yeah, I think it is actually really intimidating for a lot of people, and that's why they kind of just put their hands up and they're like, I can't.
Yeah, there's a certain point in the conversation where it's like, that's over my head.
Yeah.
Right? And like sometimes looking at a chart, it can be like, I don't know what that means. But yeah, and then today we're going to talk about Chappell Roan, which I've been wanting to talk about a while because you probably haven't listened to some of the past episodes, but I've had a really hard time not talking about Beyonce.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to talk about Chappell Roan instead. So yeah, what's your relationship to astrology?
I didn't know much, and then I had a client, I want to say in like 2018, who was a therapist / astrologer, and she helped her clients understand themselves better using their chart. And we were working together and she met me and she was like, "Do you want to come to my office for a free reading? You seem really interesting." And she did we sat there for 2 hours just like talking. And she told me everything about myself, like called me out on all this shit that I thought like no one knew about me, that I knew about me. You know, like your hidden self. And was like, "Yeah, you're coming on in this window." And I had this kind of icky boyfriend at the time. And she said, "You know, I think in a couple months you're going to know what to do about that." And you know, she was right. A couple months later, I was like, out the door with you. And I got really into it after that. She was my gateway drug.
So there was that personal like entry point.
Yeah.
I was at a astrology salon last night.
Cool.
This woman, Vivi, hosts it at the Philosophical Research Center, which is this like really cool old building. And there's like tarot and astrology and a bookstore and a place I've wanted to go for a long time. And everyone was just telling stories of kind of their entry point to astrology. And a lot of times people find it when they're like looking for answers. And there's a lot of kind of comfort that comes out of like, oh, maybe it's because of this. And maybe this is the turning point for this. And then it's really like seeing what those cycles and patterns are. And a lot of people have really crazy stories where like certain things happen on certain dates. And I mean, the anecdotes they go on forever.
Yeah. I just think it's a way to help you better. I say this with everything, but especially with astrology, like take what works and leave the rest.
Totally.
And a lot of it has worked for me and helped me understand people. And I wish I'd had this as a tool when I was younger and making dumb decisions, because I would have avoided a lot of them. Like, oh,
You're
no.
like, I'm staying away from that Scorpio.
Yeah, you took the words literally out of my mouth. I would have stayed away from many a Scorpio.
And so your background is marketing too. So before we sat down, Jess was telling me like the things that I should be doing better with for my marketing. So you come from this like, your point of view is like, how can we make this work? You know, and so that's also, does that ever factor into your?
I've done so many things. My original background, like dog rescue / public health. And then I got into, hi kitty, I got into wellness. And now I'm doing like marketing and partnerships in the rescue and animal welfare space. I kind of fell into this because I like talking to people, and I'm like,
well, my cats like you, so
I love this
if you
cat.
can't see this, my cats are swarming Jess. They're very demanding. I was saying earlier how, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, get a cat, they're so easy. And like, obviously you can leave cats, you know, for quite a while, but these particular cats are very needy.
Do you know what their signs are?
I know for sure his birthday, he's a Gemini. And Blue, I don't have her birthday, but I think she's an Aries because she's a little spicy.
I don't love an Aries.
Really? Okay, so chart confessions.
Yeah.
This is kind of where I ask some of the fun top astrology questions. So what sign do people always think that you are? Do they guess? Are they like?
Everyone always, who's like in the know, is like, you're a fire sign.
Yeah.
People guess Sag, which I'm flattered that they don't guess Aries. I'd be offended. I don't think I give off Sag energy. But I think if you know me well, like if you met me out and I was a stranger to you, you would guess I was a fire sign. But like the rest of my chart is water. So if you know me, like the inside of me, you wouldn't guess that I was a Leo.
Okay, and I want to pull up your chart in a second and talk a little bit about that too. Yeah, Sag, I could. The Leo is
It's
so
like it's
spot
obvious,
on.
yeah.
It's so spot on, and the hair, and the blonde, and the smile. Okay,
Drama.
The Leo drama. Is there a sign that you irrationally hate?
Scorpios, obviously.
Okay.
You said that too. Do you have that experience also?
You know what's funny? Like when I was younger, I always felt this tension with Scorpios because I always felt like we were kind of competing for something. Like there's being the more unique one, or the more the stronger, the opinion, like my opinion's more valid than yours. And also Scorpios can be also very entertaining and bold in certain contexts. But as an adult, I just think Scorpios are hysterical, because if you don't take them so seriously, I think they sometimes take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
So if you have the right relationship with a Scorpio, which I feel like I've kind of figured out, which is let them do their thing, let them be bold, and just kind of laugh along with them. I think it kind of the intensity sort of rolls off their backs a little bit.
Interesting.
So I right now, a lot of my friends are Scorpios, and I think it's really interesting because in the past, that was never the case.
One of my very best friends at this moment is a Scorpio, and I always tell her that she's my little Scorpio exception.
Yeah.
Because I've dated a couple, they're nuts. I would, thank God my current partner is a Gemini. I would never.
You know, it's funny though, a lot of people I've talked to have Gemini as their one that they're no Geminis.
I think part of why Jeff doesn't like astrology is if I ever read anything about astrology, they're just talking shit about Geminis, and he feels
But
personally attacked.
he has his moon in Aquarius,
Yeah.
and he's very, isn't he a Pisces? No.
He's a Capricorn
he's
rising, Gemini sun, Aquarius moon.
The Aquarius moon too is just
Yeah, he's off in space all the time.
just on another planet, dissociating, which is such a moon in Aquarius thing. I specifically see dissociating. Okay, is there a sign that you absolutely know nothing about? You're this sign, I don't get it.
The thing that comes to mind immediately is Capricorn, which is really funny because my dad's a Capricorn and my childhood best friend is a Capricorn, as is her husband and her child.
Wow,
so I have these
Capricorn
people
family.
in my life that, they have a Scorpio daughter and then there's 3 Capricorns, and I always tell her that they're fucked with the youngest one. And she knows it, and I love that kid. So, but I have all these really close Capricorns in my life, but I feel like the only thing I know about them is that they're stubborn and they're type A and they get shit done. But that's a very one note understanding.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
Yeah, it's interesting. My friend Olivia at the salon last night we were talking about the dark houses. So there's some of the houses that from the ascendant, you can't see, you're sort of blind to them.
Okay.
So it's the things that, the houses of death and prisons and hospitals, things that are kind of you don't want to look at, or you can't really see them. And there is this sort of hidden connection between Leo and Capricorn, actually.
Oh, interesting.
And there's this mutual understanding, and it's interesting because you would think that they had nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, I would.
And because Leo's the sun, and Saturn owns Capricorn, and Saturn's very regimented. And
Yeah.
the other thing that's interesting though about Capricorn is it's the sea goat.
Okay.
And kind of along with Aquarius. So Aquarius is an air sign, but it's the water bearer. So there are some water in signs that aren't water signs.
Right, okay.
So Capricorns is the sea goat. So it's the earth, but then there's also, it's half goat, half fish.
Okay.
And so Capricorns do have a little bit of an emotional undertone. So it's all business up top, but then there's stuff going on under the iceberg type thing.
Interesting.
So there's intensity and there's emotion that's kind of kept underneath.
Okay.
And so when you're talking about I don't understand what's going on with the Capricorn, there's stuff going on under the surface, and it takes a long time to get a Capricorn to open up to you. And it once they do, it's going to be in bite-sized pieces, but you'll start to understand that there's a deep current of other stuff going on.
I mean, the Capricorns in my life, I love them so much, but I just feel I don't understand. I get a Pisces. Your emotions, you're boundaryless, you're flowing with the waves and
Yeah.
the water. Like, also my moon's in Pisces. I get it. But like, yeah, Capricorn's like, I don't get it. But I love the ones that are in my life.
Funny. And then it's interesting too. So with Aquarius, it's the water bear. So it's like an intellectual sign, but it's also kind of like their heart bleeds for the public. You know, they're
very
like
humanitarian.
humanitarians. And so there's like this emotional connection to like the general public. So there's like, that's where you get some water inserted into a sign that's not a water sign.
That makes sense. That's interesting.
Do you have any, we were talking about this birthday twins.
Yeah, I texted you because I looked it up. Patrick Swayze and Robert Redford, who are, I mean, Patrick Swayze was my
Suave,
first
dancer.
man I ever saw on TV that I was like, I watched Dirty Dancing when I was like 8 years old and I fell in love with him. But then also Roman Polanski, so ooh, scary.
So, what's your actual birthday?
The August 18th. I'm gonna have to look up the time because I don't actually know.
Oh my God, we're really close to each other. I'm the 21st.
I think, and you're a cuspy baby.
Yeah, so I have my Mercury in Virgo. So usually when you're near a cusp, there's like, because Venus and Mercury are always within one sign of the sun, generally speaking. So if you're near a cusp, there's a really good chance one of those other planets is in the sign next to it. So you're always going to pull a little bit of the signs near you. Okay, Cancer rising?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna look at Jess's chart. So I'm gonna kind of jump in here and we'll just take a quick look so I can we can talk a little bit more about you, and then we'll talk a little bit more about mysticism. So you have Cancer rising and your moon is in Pisces. So basically that's kind of your dominant signature is like a lunar Pisces person. So that means you're an emotional, that you have like a maternal quality about you. And then there's that, you know, Pisces is very emotional. It's very kind of blends into the ocean of kind of having a pulse on everything. So very intuitive, very sensitive. And with Jupiter in Cancer, there's a mutual reception, meaning Jupiter and the moon have like a really beautiful relationship. And Jupiter, though, is in the 12th house of like, you know, we're talking about like prisons and institutions. And so what I think is interesting about what you do is like rescuing people from institutions, basically what it's animals.
Yeah.
And so there's this relationship in your chart of like literally like rescuing people.
Wow.
Or beings. And Jupiter usually represents large animals, so, you know, versus cats and dogs, but there's maybe later on in your life
Wildlife rescue.
you'll be rescuing larger animals, because I could see that. And then you've got the Virgo signature, so well-spoken, articulate. You know how to kind of communicate for yourself. You have Venus and Libra. It's a very great placement for beauty.
Oh, I thought my interpretation of that, and please like correct me, was that meant that I wanted like equitable relationships in life.
Yeah, it definitely has to do with like your orientation around relationships, but you know, Venus is the planet of beauty, and so its position kind of dictates how, like, what your relationship is to like beauty and leisure and art. So it's like it makes you, you know, sort of a artistically inclined and definitely appreciating beauty. So the fact that you worked for like wellness and beauty brands, things like that, really kind of tracks. And LA is a very Libra place. A couple weeks ago, I looked at, you can look at a chart for a city or the country whenever the country or city was founded.
Okay.
And so LA has like a very Libra chart, like Libra Rising, Venus and Libra. So, you know, LA has a strong Libra signature. So having Libra in your chart kind of makes you like a good fit for the city.
Does the chart of where you're born impact how you experience your chart in your life?
I think what I'm more familiar with is how people sometimes move to different cities to kind of activate different parts of their charts.
Okay.
So like putting Venus or Jupiter, the kind of positive planets, in your first house around the ascendant is usually a good idea. So there's also, in astrocartography, there's certain lines on the planet where you want to avoid and other ones you want to go to.
Interesting.
And sometimes they have like a lifespan where like a planet's line will kind of like run its course and then suddenly you're not really drawn to that place anymore.
So cool.
Yeah, people who are into astrocartography are really, really interesting.
Like it's not like New York's not like a small town. You know, I'm from a small town, but the city was like an hour away. You know, like the world was right there. It's not that I felt suffocated. I just was like, I hate this place.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, it really could be like that you instinctually like knew that there was a better place for you to put yourself. All right, so do you want to talk about Chappell Roan?
Yes.
Okay.
I listened to her music on the way over here to
You
get
did?
inspired.
To get into the mood?
Yeah.
What's your favorite song?
Right now it's The Giver, which
Giver,
is
I don't even know that
like
song.
a lesbian country song from her. I'm obsessed with
Oh,
it.
I think she performed that.
At SNL
Yeah.
in that little gingham outfit, and I was obsessed with the outfit and obsessed with her.
Such an interesting character. I've seen her on a few different interviews in particular where obviously she comes out like basically in drag, which is kind of her thing. And she's really just out like very candid, just very honest. And she's very sure of herself. There's just a lot of self-assuredness. And I think there's that clip of her singing like Pink Pony Club like on the street, and you know she was kind of giving up on herself at one point, and then had to kind of made like one last effort, and then just like
always the story,
dropped out
right?
of the sky, you know, and like made it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people, that's not always their story. Like they performed for 15 years and then maybe kind of got picked up somewhere. But she like was performing for like, you know, a couple of years, really serious, almost gave up, and then just like it like the doors opened for her.
I'm actually really curious to hear about her chart because I think she's incredibly unique. And I love that she seems like, of course, she's had media training from her label, but I love that either she took that and said, I don't give a shit about this, or she just like decided not to have media training because she doesn't come across.
Well, she got a little bit in trouble with you know, the election.
I don't know about that.
Ahead of the Kamala Trump election, she said on like Instagram or something like, you know, both sides have their issues. And that, you know, really upset everyone.
Yeah.
Because instead of like at least picking a side, she got kind of everyone upset with her. And versus like, you know, Taylor Swift and Beyonce like endorsed Kamala. And it was just like, whatever. Versus, you know, and I mean, there's something true to be said that like the political system has its issues. But I think it does speak to the fact that she was like, didn't really probably think about that too much. She was just kind of like, whatever.
I also wonder, like, and this isn't astrology, this is just her background. She's from, I think, like rural Missouri. So I'm sure she grew up around people and she loves people that are very red, despite her being a queer woman.
Totally.
So she probably was in some capacity trying to like appease people she cares for.
She has Libra Rising, which is interesting. Again, sort of the LA, it's not just entertainment, but it's like this connection to beauty and art and music, which is just like so Venus, so Libra. And I keep thinking about the LA chart. I mean, Libra makes her suitable to be in LA. And she has her Venus in Capricorn. So we were talking about Capricorn, so this is kind of interesting because she has exactly that thing that we're talking about. So she's kind of like business in some ways. Like she's like has this serious, I'm here to work, I'm here to perform. But then there's like this well of like emotional stuff going on underneath. And she has her moon in Sagittarius, which I have my moon in Sagittarius. It's a very bold, brash kind of placement. And I think that's maybe the biggest place that a lot of her outspokenness comes from, is that she just doesn't care.
Do you feel aligned with her in that way?
Yeah. She's just like, whatever, like she's gonna say it, she doesn't care, like a little bit impulsive, but you know, it's kind of like, what's the worst that can happen, which is a very Sag thing. And like, obviously bad things can happen, but Sag has this like laissez-faire, like whatever, everyone's gonna die.
I feel like Sag is also just have like a really great, and maybe toxic, but also great like non-attachment to things. Like they're like, light it on fire, burn it to the ground. I'll move to the next house. I don't care.
I struggle with that sometimes. So I have Sag rising.
Oh, you're a double.
Yeah, and I have Saturn in my first house in Sag. So I have Moon in Saturn, and I don't always use the outer planets, but I have Uranus also there. So there's just a lot of that, like, oh well, just burn it down, start over. Who cares? So, and the thing is, that's not always the best approach. You know, just lighting things on fire.
Yeah. fun.
But I kind
not
of am
always the
like
best.
here for it. Okay, so she has her moon conjunct Pluto. That's interesting. So for outer planets like Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, we don't always look at them unless someone's a celebrity because those planets move so slowly that if, we're born, a year apart, if I was doing like a relationship compatibility thing, it wouldn't be that meaningful to be like, oh my gosh, we both have our like Uranus and Sagittarius because like everybody does.
Right.
So you don't look at them that often. And they weren't discovered until way later, like much more recently, because you can't necessarily see them with your naked eye.
Right.
Ancient astrologers didn't
Right.
know about them. They didn't factor them in. So I only really care if they're a celebrity because celebrities are generational influencers. So they kind of get those generational planets activated. And she has her moon exactly conjunct Pluto. That's what this is right here in Sagittarius. And so talking about what you're saying, like Pluto is about like death and rebirth and transformation. Having the moon there is like she's emotionally like attached, can't help it, like wanting to burn things down and like rebuild them.
Yeah.
And so it is very much of that like Phoenix archetype. That's narrative and story is like very
Fits
in there.
her look.
Yeah, she's like a
The hair,
bird. She's always like this. Yeah,
Tiny little thing,
totally.
big hair.
Bird on fire.
Yeah,
like,
bird on fire.
Very Phoenix. That's so interesting that you say that.
I mean, we do, I like so believe this. Like, people do look like what they are.
Yeah.
Like resting
100%.
bitch face is real because it's real.
So actually, that is so interesting. So yeah, there's that. So we have the Capricorn thing. So she's like a professional artist, takes it seriously. You can tell.
Yeah.
There's that emotional undercurrent. The moon conjunct Pluto exactly 7 degrees Sag. That Phoenix wanting to burn things up and transform them. And then her sun, so she has Mercury in Aquarius, humanitarian, wanting to stand up for people
I could see
big
that
time.
too.
And then she has the sun conjunct Jupiter in Pisces. So her sun's in Pisces, like she's an emotional person. She has Jupiter in not in Cancer. You have Jupiter in Cancer, but she has it in a water sign, which is really positive as well in its own sign. So there's just an abundance of energy to perform. It's in her 5th house, on her 5th house cusp, which is the house of performance and entertainment. So she's just like born to be a performer, can bring a lot of energy to it. And like the world is on her side, really. And I think that's having the Jupiter conjunct the sun on the 5th house cusp really does speak to that, like the world was wanting this for her. Do you know what I mean?
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I hope she sees this.
Yeah, maybe she will.
I feel like most celebrities have an astrologer anyway,
Oh yeah, for sure.
who like guide.
Yeah, I mean, different people, like I had, my teacher, he wouldn't always tell us, but it's like he worked for CEOs.
Yeah, that
Like
makes
a lot of
sense.
CEOs like want to know like the timing of launching a product or the date to actually file paperwork for a new company.
Interesting.
Like it all matters.
It does matter.
It tells the story of the company. So you want to tell a positive story
Wow.
if you're founding a business. So
That makes sense.
yeah, and then Saturn in Aries, that's a little tough. It's on the 7th house cusp of like other people. It also represents like the audience. So, and Saturn doesn't like being in Aries because it's a mean planet in a mean place. So
Saturn's a mean planet?
yeah,
Okay, and Aries is a mean place.
yeah, for Saturn in particular. So like
Like they're
I'm
enemies.
translating in astrology they're called the malefics.
Okay.
So Saturn is the greater malefic and Mars is the lesser malefic.
Okay.
They're the planets that like want to take things from you.
Okay.
And then Jupiter is the greater benefic and Venus is the lesser benefic.
Okay.
Those are the planets that want to give you things.
Okay.
So, and it can be used either way. Like sometimes you want to get rid of something. Like if you're sick and you have like an aspect to Mars or Saturn, that could potentially be a good thing because it's like taking the illness away. If those planets are in positive situations versus if you're sick, you don't really want Jupiter involved because Jupiter makes things more. It adds to things. So you
Okay.
don't want Jupiter to be adding to your illness.
Okay.
But like if we're talking about money, we want Jupiter, we want
Okay.
Venus.
Right,
If we're
'cause they are-
you want to add to the money. So Saturn is a planet that wants to take things from you. And Aries is like angry. It's like an angry planet that wants to take things
Yeah.
from you. And it's on the 7th house cusp within a few degrees. And so I see that just causing some issues for her, like in relationships. Like we don't know much about her, what her private life is in terms of relationships. I don't know how public she's ever going to want to be about that. But this makes it seem like that's going to be a challenging area for her, because it's going to feel like restrictive. And she has her Mars in Pisces. So she's looking for somebody who's like also an advocate, somebody who's like an emotionally oriented advocate. So that's the archetype of someone she's going to want to be with. But Saturn being right there makes it seem like there are going to be obstacles because that you have that negative planet there.
I want to come back when she ends up with somebody publicly and then us do the partners chart.
Yeah, take a look at it. Yeah, I mean, definitely, I see it being somebody who has to be within their world, right? Like she can't just be dating anybody. It has to be like another public figure, obviously, somebody who is an advocate, because Mars like really advocates for people, and Pisces is emotional. So like, you can kind of start to see who that might be. Maybe some type of activist, potentially.
Hopefully a woman for her sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like what you're describing is a female person, or a female identifying person.
I mean, she's lesbian.
I think
Is she not?
She is, but I think she's queer. Like I think she's had
like
boyfriends.
bisexual-ish.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna.
Oh my
label
God,
her.
I didn't even think about her being
is.
anything besides lesbian.
Yeah.
Maybe she is bisexual. We'll see. Yeah, Mars Pisces is very lesbian coded.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your show and tell.
Yeah. I think my hair is actually stuck to a chunk of it. Okay, so this, I kind of have two. So this, here, I can pass it to you.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So there's a
Let's
spell
show it
in
to
that
those
necklace.
on camera.
I don't think is it pop?
It's on my other
Oh,
screen.
it is. I can't tell. There is a spell in there. So there's gold flake and honey and a spell, and it's a little bottle that's sealed with a stopper.
That is so cool. So tell me the story about this.
I genuinely don't know where I got this.
Really? It just you just showed up? How do you know it's honey?
I remember that it's gold flake. I remember that it's honey. I remember that there's like a good health spell in here. Someone either gave this to me or I got it at a farmer's market or something. Because, I have a lot of autoimmune issues. And apparently that's in my chart, that a lot of my autoimmune stuff comes out in my skin, which it does.
Interesting.
And I was going through one of my phases of having really severe chronic hives where I wasn't able to work and couldn't function. And I got this, and it was like a wellness and healing spell sealed in this little stopper. And I wore it for ages. But obviously my hives, that condition has mostly resolved itself. And so I just, we cycle through jewelry. I don't wear this one anymore, but I won't get rid of it because it feels really special. Yeah. And I really don't know how I got it. It just came to me somehow. Maybe a farmer's market. Maybe someone got it for me.
But it has a meaning for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And I used to wear it all the time. And when I wore it, people would be like, what the heck is on your neck?
Is that?
Because it does sort of look witchy and haunted.
Totally. Not haunted, but it feels magical.
Yeah.
Like that it's something.
Yeah. Anyway, so
cool. Thanks for sharing that.
I actually also brought my grandmother's cameo ring because I do feel like there's a little bit of it's a little witchy too.
Ooh, what is this?
That's actual elephant tusk. It was a face, but it's worn down so much. Wow. My grandmother brought it back from Italy in I don't know when, the 50s or something, and gave it to my mom, who gave it to me, and I've been wearing it since I was 13. So it's got three generations of women, their fingers in there. And that's got to be haunted.
Feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel something with that, for sure.
Every time anything's happened to this ring, I'm like, it's a bad omen. The cameo fell out the 3 days, a day or two before I was packing to go to college, and it had to get repaired, so I had to go to college without it. And my college years were, I don't know, I was a party animal. It was a little tumultuous, and I feel like maybe the ring was trying to tell me, look at your life, look at your choices.
Wow, it was being shady.
Yeah, it was I'm not going with you on this journey. You're gonna go do some things that I don't approve of.
I do feel like losing rings. If you're not a person who loses things, because if you are a person who loses things, then losing a ring means nothing. Mm-hmm. But for people who don't lose things, I think losing a ring is really sad. Mm-hmm. I've lost rings over the years. I used to be a ring person. Okay, maybe I'll start wearing rings again.
Yeah, right. Bring the rings back.
Bring the rings back. But I had this like Om Mani Padme Hum, like, you know, like hippy dippy, one of those hippy dippy like rings that are like from a Tibetan shop. Although the one I had was like nice sterling silver. It wasn't just like copper. But I lost that once. And also one time when I was doing drag in Vegas, I like lost one of my favorite rings, and I was like, did I lose a part of myself?
No, maybe the drag gods were like, this is your donation.
Yeah, I was paying my dues.
Yeah, we need to take something from you.
I've been thinking about doing drag again. I've only done it a few times, and it is so fun. Just thinking about Chappell Roan's drag persona. It really is like a freeing thing.
Yeah. Well, you're also a very, I think, like theatrical person, and I think it would be such a place for you to channel that.
It's so fun. Yeah. Yeah, my friend used to host this weekend called the Fabulous but Very Serious Las Vegas Drag Weekend. Okay. It was like FBVSLW, like it had this whole acronym. Yeah. And he would hire a bus to take us to Vegas, and then he would rent out, it wasn't really rented out, but it was like coordinated with a bar to host like this drag fundraiser, and we would like raise money and bring it back to like the LGBT center.
I love that.
Yeah, and it was so fun. And the reason it was like fabulous but very serious is that, you know, I think when it comes to drag, but especially to people just trying to do drag for the first time, like some people take it very seriously and some people take it like very unseriously. Yeah. And there's always like on RuPaul's Drag Race, there's like the pageant queens and there's like the comedy queens, and there's like these two factions of like beauty versus humor.
Who would you be?
I'm definitely more of like a pageant girl, but I also think I'm funny. So
yeah, I agree. You're funny.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd have to be like a palmistry, like Madame Zoe or something.
Well, my drag name's Amethyst.
Love that.
There was another girl who went on with her name Amethyst, but I've already been called Amethyst for many years.
It's mine.
Yeah. I'm like, there can be two, I guess, but she wasn't that.
Well, if you did it, you know, we'd all be out there supporting you.
Thoughts. Maybe I should.
Pick a date that's astrologically, you know, inclined.
Positive.
Yeah, for performance.
I should. Okay, now we're gonna just talk a little bit about the cosmic forecast.
Yeah.
Have you heard about any like transits that are going on?
Yes, vaguely. I will say that I remember sitting with my astrologer friend who got me into astrology. This was right before COVID, and we were talking about, this was like 2019. We were talking about feeling like there was something coming, something really big, like on the precipice of like this really big global change, and that it was like in the air. And she told me then, astrologically, I agree with this thing that you're feeling. And she and I talked in like 2021, like, remember when we predicted COVID?
We predicted
Yeah,
COVID.
remember when we said this was gonna happen? And so I know from her that like that feeling that we were feeling was correct. Like she could see it in the stars, like something was coming. And I know that we're in a phase with Aquarius, maybe that last happened during Vietnam or something like that.
Let me pull up the latest chart. So Pluto's in Aquarius. I think the thing that's really interesting to me right now is Saturn is approaching a conjunction with Neptune. They're both in early degree Aries. And Neptune dissolves things, and Saturn represents like authority figures. And so there's like this Saturn approaching Neptune, like our ideas of authority are like getting blurred.
Okay.
And then what's going to happen is before Saturn actually hits Neptune, they're going to both go retrograde. And so we're kind of like in this holding pattern. I think we're we're like approaching this bad place, and then like the gas is going to lift off for a couple months, and then it's going to like come back full force.
Okay.
So I think in terms of the rest of the summer, I think things are going to calm down like momentarily, but like that doesn't mean anything. Like that we have to like maintain our activism and continue to push forward, because there's going to be this breath, but then it's going to come back.
So that's like a few months out, but do you feel comforted by what's a couple years out or a couple more months out beyond that?
Not really. Yeah. There's a lot of things that have to be sorted out. And I think, you know, also last night at the Astro Salon, just talking about the context of this country, you know, how it was founded on stolen land.
With stolen labor.
And with this Constitution and Declaration of Independence, you know, calling for freedom for all and all these things, it's just like there's so much dissonance. Like these things, it can't all be true.
Yeah.
So I think we're reckoning with all that philosophically and playing out in real time. Like, what do we stand for? You know what I mean? So I think these themes are going to continue to play out for a while. And, you know, people talk about Pluto going retrograde in Aquarius as being a recurring theme too.
That's probably what I had heard.
Yeah. Anyway, well, the positive thing is that Jupiter's in Cancer, so it's in its exaltation. It just was conjunct the Sun yesterday. So there was this, usually conjunctions with the Sun, they're not necessarily negative, but Jupiter is sort of being burned up by the Sun, and now it's kind of moving away, so kind of anew. And it's also coincided with the new moon. So we had the Sun, the moon, and Jupiter all in Cancer. So last night, I don't know if you felt this, but I kind of felt it at the event last night, but just kind of just a lot of Cancer emotional energy, just very, very sensitive. I don't know if you felt that at all.
I watched Love Island and I felt pretty emotional. I was crying during the dumping, which I don't usually do. I'm not a crier.
Yeah, for me, it goes over my 8th house, which is kind of my house of, you know, hidden things, of death, the kind of negative house that I was talking about. Let me pull up your chart. Let's see where Cancer is. Oh, it's in your first house. So your first house is being activated. So for you, it has a lot more to do with like your identity and your energy. So for you, it's like actually a really nice boost. You're having your Jupiter return.
Interesting.
So every 12 years, you have a Jupiter return. So you're, you know, within the next couple of, actually, I think your Jupiter return is like yesterday. And
during all of that?
Yeah.
Wow.
So 3 degrees Cancer, your Jupiter. And right now, today, Jupiter is 3 degrees. Yeah, today.
Is my today? And then we're doing this podcast today?
Yeah, on the day of your Jupiter return.
Synchronicity.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jupiter returns have a lot to do, in my experience, like coming back to yourself. One of my friends in my astrology class early on, he would always say, he was like, I have this theory that like people are like just their Jupiter. Like their Jupiter is just like really who they are.
Yeah.
And your Jupiter is in Cancer, so it kind of tracks because you're Cancer rising anyway. But, you know, Cancer, I mean, just an emotionally sensitive, like lunar caring person, and bringing that Pisces moon, and so you get that Jupiter energy as well. But for me, my Jupiter is in Gemini, and I feel like I relate a lot. When the sun's sign horoscopes come out, I like always relate with the Gemini one the most.
Interesting.
And I bet Jeff relates more to the Aquarius ones. If you ever,
he says whenever he reads stuff that he feels most Aquarius.
Yeah. He sort of acts like an Aquarius.
I agree. But I feel like he's got the good looks of a Gemini.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally. And the Aquarius is usually...
Are they?
Aquariuses have like even for women, there's like this boyish vibe to them. Just kind of like, I don't know if that's the best way I can put it, but it's
All
like,
the Aquarians,
not that he's like boyish, but he's like the jawline, like the youthful kind of quality is like very Aquarius. It's not necessarily masculine, but there's just something sort of boyish about them. I don't know how to explain it,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
interesting. I'm trying to like run through the Aquarians I know in my head. It's also really interesting that you're talking about this Jupiter and Cancer thing, because like I told you, I had just left a therapy session when I was coming here. And the theme of my therapy session was sort of like stepping into, can I curse?
Yeah.
Like I feel very profoundly like I know who the fuck I am. And I spent a lot of my life as that Pisces moon pretty boundaryless emotionally, in the sense that like somebody would tell me something and I'd be like, oh, maybe that's true. Or like I was very willing to believe the things people told me about myself versus me knowing what my truth was. And I feel very solid at this moment in time and like, nope, this is who I am, this is who I'm not, you can't tell me nothing, fuck off. And also, if you're gonna step out of my personal morality and my boundaries, like I'm in a place where I have zero issue calling somebody out, whereas I would have really struggled with that. I just had a thing professionally in a meeting where someone said something that was really inappropriate. And I was like, no, like I just fully wasn't having it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you're having your Jupiter return today.
Yeah.
I mean, people a lot of times with identity talk about Saturn. You know, when you're about 30, you have your first Saturn return, and then every 7-ish years, you're having a quarter return. So you're like approaching also like a quarter Saturn return. But I do think that Jupiter returns speak to coming back to yourself. This, in a way that's, you know, like on your birthday, you feel like this little, you're ignited a little bit for a couple of days.
Yeah.
You're like, this is me. When I think when that Jupiter comes back, you're like, it's more like in your spirit. There's like, this is who I am. This is who I am.
Yeah.
So you'll have this confidence, at least for a year of, not to say it will go away, but it's like you'll be starting another process.
Yeah.
But during the Jupiter return, for me, like I lost a job and I then was like having a little bit of an identity crisis, like all the things that I've spent my time doing, you know, over my life. And being with the Gemini energy, just going back and forth between like a lot of things and always having at least two things running, which is like a Gemini thing. And Geminis also have this signature for having to do things twice. And, you know, like I was really pursuing astrology really seriously when I was like 24, like 12 years ago. And now I'm like coming back to it. And I think that there's something in that, like having my Jupiter return this year.
And coming back to yourself, which this is. Yeah, that makes sense
Yeah.
to me. I love that for you, actually.
Yeah.
Go Jupiter returns.
Go
I didn't
Jupiter
know I
returns.
liked her so much.
I know, Jupiter returns. Yeah, people don't talk about it as much. I
No,
think
you hear all about your Saturn return.
Saturn is big, you know, but then Jupiter is, again, it's the greater benefic. You don't always notice Jupiter and Venus as much because they're helping you.
Yeah.
You kind of tend to notice when things are really not working out for you.
Yeah, you like remember the negative
You're like,
things.
you're like, Saturn must be like fucking with me. And it's probably right. Or Mars.
Yeah.
But, you know, you don't always notice when the good things are happening. And it's usually that's Jupiter or Venus involved.
Okay. Well,
That's why it's good to be grateful. Thank the angels.
thank the planets.
Thank the planets for
Maybe
helping you.
Jeff and I talk about getting matching tattoos. Maybe I'll make him get a Jupiter tattoo with me.
That's cool. You know, the Jupiter glyph is cool. It looks kind of like a 4. Have you seen it?
No, but maybe
Here,
I'll
show it to
make
you.
him get that.
This is, it's this one.
Oh, I like that.
It's cool, right?
It's really cool.
Yeah. I don't have any like glyphs, but all my tattoos are about astrology.
Well, you have your beautiful lion on your leg.
I have my lion and my tiger, because tiger is my power animal, lion for my Leo. And then I have a tattoo that says out of bounds, because my moon's out of bounds,
Okay.
which is a whole other conversation, but
You'll have to tell me at the next party. 'cause I
yeah,
wanna hear
out of
about
bounds
this.
is like, it's just exaggerated, it's sort of a little out of control. And so like my emotions sometimes they won't stay in a box. Like they just spill over.
Okay.
And I think like as a Cancer oriented person, you would understand.
Yeah.
But like having your moon out of bounds, like just makes you really lunar. Like your lunar qualities like can't be contained.
That's interesting. I'm very emotional and sensitive, but I don't let that out often. Like I don't cry easily. I'm not someone who has like big emotional reactions to things. Like I might feel it intensely, but I'm not gonna like have a expression of that in a really like uncontrolled way. And there is a part of me, like people who have big emotions that they let out easily, I'm like a little jealous of them. I'm like, oh, look at you just like casually feeling
That's
your feelings.
also like, I think for you, the Cancer energy, like it has a place. It can kind of exist in your chart. Like there's a place for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like people who you see their emotions spilling over, like their chart doesn't know how to hold it, so it overflows.
Okay.
It's one of the paradoxes that I see in people with like really strong water charts. That people are like, oh, everyone says I should be like really emotional. And of course you can be emotional,
Yeah.
but there's a holding place for it in your chart. So like you understand it. It's like, it's the people who have like no water in their chart that are extremely emotional because they don't have any like instinctual understanding of like
Yeah.
how to sit with that. They just like, they don't want anything to do with it until it's like too late.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the paradoxes. You see people with no fire in their chart, really, really attention seeking because they don't have like that fire inside.
Right, that like natural thing.
Yeah, they're like, they're trying to manufacture it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's the paradox when you're missing an
That's very
element.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, Out of Bounds, I have like
Yeah.
a tattoo of one of the astrology books that I like read like my Bible.
Okay.
And then I do have a tarot card of the Magician.
Love that.
And then I have a sibling tattoo with my sister with a Libra, like scales thing.
I've seen that one.
She's a Libra.
Yeah.
Libra.
She's such a Libra.
Such a Libra. My teacher used to always say Libra, because over history, it's been pronounced differently. And it kind of like speaks so much to Libra because like they can't decide.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you can say it whatever way. I don't
doesn't matter.
care. Like, just however you want to pronounce my name.
I love a Libra.
Yeah.
They get a bad rap sometimes too. I think they're the best.
LA is a Libra place. It's a good place for Libras. I will say that. All right. Any closing thoughts? Any closing reflections?
Well, I know one of your questions was how gay is astrology?
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to answer this.
Yeah. How gay is astrology?
So gay.
Yes.
Actually, I don't think gay is the word I would use. I would think very queer.
Queer. Yes.
And I think that it's very queer because it's like the most fun and like flamboyant, but also because it's so maligned by like cishet culture as being like this bunk science in the way that, because it's associated with femininity. And I think the reason why people are drawn to it is because they've turned from religion, which is like not open and welcoming, to like, it's a belief system, right?
Yeah.
That like guides you.
Yeah.
And religion's not welcoming to women or people that don't fit into like this white heteronormative view of religion.
Totally.
And that's why astrology is so gay because it also sits in opposition to like heteronormativity and like religiosity. I'm using a lot of words that hopefully make a lot of sense. Maybe they don't. It's like it's sitting in opposition to that too. So I think it's like, it's not just gay because it's like flamboyant and fun. It's gay because it actually is like oppositional to traditional structures of belief and understanding ourselves and having like a moral guide.
Completely agree with you. And I don't know why I glossed over that question. I think I forgot, but I do like to ask it because it does create this conversation. And, at the astrology events that I go to, the conferences, things like that, it's like there's a very, very significant queer population.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence. It's like people who feel excluded or abandoned by their spiritual upbringing.
Yeah.
Everybody needs some type of spiritual world. I mean, I think some people avoid it, but there's only so long you can avoid having a spiritual understanding of your life. Whether it's as simple as like your relationship to your ancestors or your parents, just your relationship to life and death. You can't really go very, very long without completely avoiding your sense of a spirituality.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And so it's like a human thing. It's a human
Yeah.
thing that we need a spiritual life and world. And I think what's cool about astrology and what's special about it is, yes, it is, often considered like a pseudoscience, but it is a belief system that is very much like a study. And it's also obviously very philosophical, and it's also very poetic. So it's this space where people can sort of daydream, think, journal, and wonder, about what their life means and what is going on around them.
Yeah.
So I really see astrologers as like philosophers and poets. They're free thinkers. And it is a spiritual system. And I think, especially queer people, I think it's a very safe place because there's also no dogma. Like nobody's in charge. It's like,
and there's no morality to like, this is bad or good. It just is.
Right. And there's lineages of teachers and there's books. And so we're all like students. Like we're all kind of just equal students. And I think that's so important. And I think that's what's very unique because even, I spent a lot of time in a Buddhist community, and there's still a lot of hierarchy and dogma and corruption.
Yeah.
And so it's like you can't really avoid it. And I'm not saying that there's like zero corruption within like astrological communities, because of course there can be weird things anywhere. But generally speaking, I think it's devoid of a lot of dogma.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's really beautiful. And I think that fact that it's welcoming to queer people makes it even gayer because like I think are like queer.
It's like, yes, astrology.
Yeah, it's like everyone come.
Yeah,
like,
you're
one
right.
Come, one come
yeah,
all.
You're right.
Like,
everyone's welcome
the
to.
fact that everyone's welcome is such a queer community sentiment. because like the church doesn't
You heard
do
it
that.
here first.
Yeah.
Aw, thanks for reminding me of that question.
I was really excited about
You're
that
like,
question.
ask me the gay
Yeah,
question.
ask me the gay, because on the way here, I was like, yeah, there's a lot to like astrology and the patriarchy.
Totally.
There is a relationship there that's really significant.
And you know, I feel like, sometimes I do like taking my astrology more seriously. I sometimes do feel a little embarrassed. Like, I'm like, am I crazy?
Yeah,
You know, because this is not like,
because you're gaslighting yourself because the patriarchy's in your head.
yeah, I'm like, is this real? Like, is this worthwhile? Is this valid? When it's like, it provides structure for people to think about their feelings and their life. And there's like only positive things that really can kind of come out of that. I mean, of course you can spiral out and, you know, create a narrative that bad things are happening to you, but like you can do that with or without astrology. But
You can victimize yourself no matter where you are.
Exactly. Yeah. But generally speaking, I do think that it's like, for me, it's like a language of poetry and philosophy, and it does welcome everyone, and everyone does have their niche and their angle and the thing that they learn about. And for me, I love relationships and relationship dynamics and all that kind of stuff. So, this has been so fun.
Yeah.
I knew it's so funny. Like, you popped into my head, like, you know, this is episode, what is this, 5 or 6? 6. So, like, when I first was like, I'm like, I want to start a podcast, like, your name came in my head pretty much right away, because I was like, Jess will be fun to talk to. She gets it, and she knows like enough to like really like just dig into, and like, you know, you ask like really good questions, and so this has been so fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so honored you thought of me. My first podcast.
Thank you so much.
my God, thank you for having
and driving
me.
all the way over here.
It wasn't bad.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. Bye, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Mwah.